Hello everybody and welcome back to MCAETtv's Critic Corner. I'm Miranda and this is Cesar. This is where we have weekly discussions of movies that we watched. This week we watched Captain Marvel.
I know a renegade soldier when I see one. Never occurred to me that one might come from above.
Captain Marvel was directed by Boden and Fleck.
Starring Brie Larson as Captain Marvel.
So full disclosure, we don't know a lot of things about the world. We don't know that much about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We don't know that much about even just this character. So we're coming from the perspective of judging just this movie as just this movie.
Honestly, Marvel movies don't really interest me. I didn't grow up with these characters. I don't really have like a strong attachment to any of them.
By the end of 2019, you're gonna have to take like a full month off just to catch up on all the Marvel Cinematic Universe and really understand how they connect with each other. You're probably gonna have to read dozens of comics too to get a lot of the more subtle parts of the world and the lore behind the characters, like the things that they have and the things that they do.
Yeah, because I feel we watched it on opening night basically, so there were a lot of like Marvel specific fans in our audience. And I felt like there were a lot of jokes or like things in the movies where people were like, oh, you know, like silently like excited and stuff. And I was just like looking around like, what's going on?
Yeah, I'm more into like superhero and Marvel stuff than you, but even I was like, a lot of this is going right over my head. That's just something to really keep in mind, that we're just judging this movie as this movie. We
can't really relate it to like all of the other Marvel movies, like how well they are like compared to each other, like how well they fit together.
Yeah, we haven't even seen the most recent Avengers yet. We're going to, but
I keep having these memories. I see flashes. I think I had a life here.
This movie starts off in a different planet called Kree, where there's like people, aliens, and
pretty humanoid looking for the most part.
Some of them are blue for no reason.
Some of them have like cheap looking blue makeup on. It's just like really obviously just like blue paint.
They just like spray painted them blue.
Yeah.
I don't get it. I don't know why some of them are blue and some of them aren't. I guess it's just like they're just different. It's just
well, they
life
have
here.
blue blood.
I'm pretty sure there's some like crazy explanation somewhere in a comic.
Like, we don't know anything about Kree.
Please don't kill us.
We don't know anything about like the Kree world or the backstory behind like the Kree versus the Skrull, because that's like mostly what this movie is about. Them chasing each other down and like evading each other, and Captain Marvel finding out her place in the mix of things. Like, where does she really belong, kind of thing. Like her rediscovering herself, finding out who she is again.
One of my favorite parts about this movie was when she landed onto Earth, and she just lands like straight into a blockbuster, and you're like, okay, I know exactly what time period this is. They did like a really good job of like establishing the setting like right away, and I feel like there was like elements of nostalgia, but it wasn't the whole movie was nostalgia necessarily. Like it was like
there were elements throughout, but it wasn't super like down your throat. Like
she was wearing like a 9 Inch Nails shirt.
Yeah.
And like there was like TLC playing in the background randomly. Like a lot of like musical callbacks to the 90s.
Yeah, so if you were born like in the 80s, it's probably kind of a fun movie to watch, even if you're not into superhero stuff that much. Marvel's
really good with like time periods and like establishing the feel of those time periods, because I know that with Guardians of the Galaxy, they really go for like that 80s throwback feel. And like it does feel like that, the use of their music and stuff. And in this movie, it's more of a 90s movie. So it does feel a lot more 90s with the music and the style choices that they make. I wonder if this movie will kind of pull in new audiences.
Maybe, because there's some weird controversy around it. We should quickly touch upon that. We don't really have a stance one way or another. We don't even really know what's going on. Apparently, Brie Larson said some things that were very disagreeable with some people. We don't even really know what she said. We don't know anything about it. We don't really care.
Yeah.
We're not really taking that into account either. We're just judging this movie as this movie without like really what's going on around it, because I don't think that should affect how we score or critique or judge the movie or anything.
Kind of like separating the artist from the art.
Yeah.
And she's like an actress. I don't know. She didn't have like a heavy hand in the
Yeah, it's not like she
production.
wrote it.
She just acted in the movie.
Yeah.
Her acting was pretty like.
There were some scenes that were unintentionally hilarious.
Yeah.
Like her facial acting was really funny at some points when it wasn't supposed to be. So I guess you could knock her on that. But other than that, like, I don't know. I really just don't care for those things.
Every time you tweet about it, it's like Marvel gets more and more people like aware of the movie.
That's something that for some reason people never seem to realize. I guess there's like a new person born every day, but still, like, the more you talk about something that you don't want to have a place in pop culture or to be making money, like, the more you're contributing to it.
Yeah, it's just like good or bad, you're getting the name out, and more people are like thinking about it, hearing about it, and it's kind of like planting that seed in your mind.
Yeah, and in all likelihood, like, you just don't have the power and never will to really affect their sales. So you're just advertising.
I really just like the movie as the movie.
Yeah, I liked it. Like, it was really entertaining. Like, all the effects were really cool. I thought.
I didn't like the effects.
No, I thought they were neat. Oh, fun fact about.
Ooh, hit me with the fun fact.
Yeah, I have a lot of fun facts. One interesting thing about this movie is that it's Marvel's first time de-aging a character for the whole thing, which I didn't even notice because it was done to
Samuel
Nick
Jackson?
Fury. Yeah, it was done to Samuel Jackson's character, Nick Fury, and to Clark Gregg's character, Agent Coulson. I didn't even notice. I thought it was just like kind of solid makeup or something.
I was like, there's no way that this is makeup, that you could get like prosthetics to look that good. It was like kind of distracting me. I was like trying to figure out how they did it to the point where I was like, okay, I need to stop thinking about this. I need to watch the movie now.
Yeah, so that was kind of an interesting thing because previously Marvel has only done that for flashbacks.
It looks pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, they have a really good base to start off with. Like, neither of them really look super, like, decrepit and wrinkly.
Because I remember they did that with Robert Downey Jr. in one of the Avenger movies, I believe. You could correct me in the comments. But, like, Robert Downey Jr. was, like, playing a flashback. Like, it looked weird. I don't know. It was only, like, a couple of years ago, but it looked like there's, like they put Vaseline over his face to make him look, like, younger. But this one...
It looked pretty crisp and clean.
Yeah, like he had pores and everything. It was crazy.
Yeah, it wasn't like a Man of Steel upper lip situation. It looked pretty good.
I know.
The one thing, though, that I will judge it for in the effects department is the cat. I read that Brie Larson has a cat allergy. I'm not sure if that's true, but I think that they had to use a puppet or a CGI for those scenes, and it looked really weird sometimes, but it's still a cat. So.
Yeah.
It's fine.
I know the cat did look really weird.
You noticed that too, right? Like some of the scenes, the lighting was off. Like just these things about its movement
the face would
were
turn
off.
like.
Yeah.
I'm like a certified cat lady, so like I could tell when cats' faces are like different or like there's weird. Like slight things to them, and like I was like, it was just hard to point out, but there's some things where like the cat's face looked more like narrow and then like wider, and like the fur was off.
Yeah, so there's 4 or 5 different cats acting for Goose, which is named after a character in Top Gun. In the comics, it's named Chewie. The cat is named Chewie after Chewbacca.
They did that. I forget what. I think it was the Skrull aliens, but they went like...
Oh, yeah.
It was so, like, random. I was like, what?
The first time that they hit us with that, I was like, what are you doing? It was really funny. The first time that the Skrull people did their call. Yeah. It was, like, I guess, I don't know if it was supposed to be funny. I don't know what it was supposed to be. Some of the things are really tonally inappropriate in this movie. Like, we were cackling when we weren't supposed to be. Like, it was supposed to be a serious action scene or something, but it super wasn't.
Every time that Captain Marvel kind of, like, had that face mask and then the mohawk thing, I was like, that looks like Green Lantern. It looked really bad. I didn't like those bits.
I wasn't a fan of the helmet part of the costume, but the rest of it was like, that's fine.
Truth be told, I was ready to hang it up till I met you today.
I also liked her interactions with Nick Fury. I thought that those were pretty cool.
They had like a fun banter between them, I think.
Like, she really played well off of Samuel Jackson's character. But I think it's kind of hard to not play well off of him.
Yeah, I mean, he's like a really good actor.
It was pretty interesting to see him, because in the other Marvel things that I've seen, he's not really like a main character. He's kind of in there and he like banters with the rest of the characters, but he's not like the focus.
Yeah.
In this movie, he's the focus, and it was like really cool to watch that part.
Normally, Nick Fury is just kind of like a background character that's setting things up off screen, and then he comes up whenever he's like really needed or relevant. But in this, it's kind of all about just them two figuring things out.
Yeah, so if you like Samuel Jackson's character in the other Marvel movies, you definitely like him in this one.
It's interesting because you get to see like who he was beforehand. He wasn't always like this super tough guy leader. He's a lot more whimsical than you're used to seeing him.
He felt more like a cop.
Yeah,
like he was in a buddy cop movie.
Yeah, it felt almost like that, didn't it? And a lot of the times,
yeah,
they're like breaking into places together and stuff. Samuel Jackson said about Nick Fury during this time period that he wasn't like jaded yet. He wasn't so like cynical of humanity. So I guess that's why he's like more whimsical. He cracks a lot more jokes, you know, he's a lot more go with the flow as opposed to like, no, you do what I say and you like do it when I say so.
Yeah, and I feel like Samuel L. Jackson works the best in those types of roles where you kind of just like let him have fun with it. I feel like recently, every time I see him, he's kind of like the serious old man. Like, he was still really cool, but he was also more grounded. He felt more like a person.
It's an interesting contrast because Nick Fury's like just a guy and then Captain Marvel's like this demigod basically that just is barely reined in by a chip on her neck. And that's a fun dynamic because at one point they're like talking to each other and it shows just how different they are. So at one point they're talking to each other, testing to see like, oh, are you a Skrull or something that's shapeshifted into Nick Fury, or are you a Skrull that is shapeshifted into Captain Marvel? And so they're talking to each other about their childhood, which is kind of an interesting way. I like how they gave them some exposition, like some character development between themselves, you know, like, oh, okay, they're kind of getting friendly with each other now. Because at the end she says like, oh, I didn't need to ask that last thing, I was just curious. So it's like they're kind of starting to get along, and it's fun how they develop that.
Yeah, because he didn't even know that things like that existed. This is his introduction to kind of like supers and like otherworldly powers.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool seeing him interact with like these weird things. He's like the everyday straight man in this movie.
You see his first time experiencing like otherworldly events in this movie, and it's really fun to see his reaction to it.
We can't do this alone. We need you.
So what would you rate this movie?
It's really hard because I'm not really the target audience for this movie. I feel like I didn't watch a lot of the other Marvel movies, and I typically like avoid them. Which
I think speaks to the movie's credit of being so beginner friendly to those that aren't super deep into the world. You still enjoyed it?
Yeah, I still enjoyed it. I would probably give this movie about maybe a 6. I liked it better than okay.
I would give this movie like a solid 7. I don't feel too strongly about this movie. I don't think there's anything great, but there wasn't anything horrible about it either.
I'm not what you think I am.
Thank you guys so much for watching. Subscribe, maybe give it a like. We're gonna be back here every single week. Let us know in the comments down below what you thought about this review, this movie. Give us any recommendations that we should watch next time.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you guys, bye.